This is the story that changed my entire faith in humanity. Meeting them was that point in my real estate career where now I have 20 properties and it all could have ended right here, but it didn't. Welcome back to the channel. This is going to be a fun one. I'm going to be going over my third ever deal. I'm going to start moving away from more of the macro stuff and just continue to show behind the scenes and give you guys more stories of just how everything has played out for me. This home specifically has it all. This was a crazy experience. It was a single family home that started with 4 separate tenants, college style, each person renting a bedroom. I ended up having squatters. I ended up having the house completely destroyed at one point. I had fraud where one tenant was making up fake leases and fake companies to get money from other tenants. I had an amazing rehab process, and it was the first real rehab I did. Also have a great story of the family that moved in and now lives in there now. I'm very excited to go over this one. Again, I'm also going to do numbers too, so I'll show you guys photos, numbers, my thought process, the whole 9 yards. Let's get into it. The first thing I'm going to touch on is the pre-purchase analysis. Basically, what was I thinking as the deal was happening? At this point in the game, I had 2 properties. I had my house hack, and then I had the duplex that I bought, Burr Street. And this was the first house I looked at that was a single family home. And the reason I wanted to do single family is because it's much easier to manage than a multifamily. It's one tenant, one roof. And when someone has their own single family home, they're much more likely to stay longer and you'll have less turnover than a multifamily. At this point too, I was very eager. I didn't have that much money. So my thought process was high bedroom count for low purchase price, because in this market, this was a house in St. Paul. The bedroom count is going to be the most important thing for your rent. Obviously, you're going to be able to charge more for a 4-bedroom than you are a 2-bedroom. And that's exactly what this house was. This was a 4-bedroom home. It had central AC, all hardwood floors, and the purchase price was very low. The purchase price was, I believe, $123,000, which is crazy to think about now, of how low a purchase price that was. And the thought process for most people who get into real estate the way I did, where you're just using your own money and trying to figure out how to create cash flow, how to create, equity, is you want the most income for the least amount of money down. And the other part of a single family home is you only have to put 20% down, compared to, at the time, multifamilies were 25 or 30% down. There was a lot of things that I overlooked on this house. This house had a lot of problems that, in my inexperience at this point, I was just so excited that I overlooked. One of them was the tenant situation. As I mentioned in the intro, they were all grown men too. It was 4 grown men, each renting 1 bedroom for $500 apiece. And that was not an ideal situation, because I basically had 4 different tenants, even though it was a single family home. And I was willing to deal with that because the purchase price was so low. Actually, funny story, when I went to go look at this property, there was 3 or 4 other families there at the same time. There was a lot of showings for this property. And the fact that the yard was kind of messy, the garage was full of stuff. The garage had basically hoarder stuff in there. It was completely full. And the tenant situation, it scared everyone off. And at this point, I was, again, just so eager to get going, and I was fearless, and I just didn't care. The numbers made sense. I'd figure out the tenant situation later, and that's exactly what I did. Okay, deal source. Deal source is so important, and every year I go on, every year I stick around, the more I realize that deal flow is the most important thing. At this time, I had no contacts. I had my partner Dusty. I had one agent that I knew from my local gym, and that was about it as far as my contacts went. So everything I was doing was finding deals straight off the MLS. If you're not familiar with what the MLS is, it's basically public listings on Zillow and Redfin. I found this just public listing like anyone else, and I love to tell people that too. I love to say that in these videos because it goes to show that there are amazing deals publicly listed in your area. The problem is most people just aren't looking. It's not glamorous. It's not social media flashy with cars and make money fast and quick. It's just an ugly house that's undervalued in your area that anyone could see. And if you go and look on the Zillow views, you'll see that 97 people looked at it and 8 people saved it. It's just no one's looking. With that being said, the deal source was Zillow and publicly listed on the MLS. Now I'm going to hop in and show you guys some of the photos, the behind the scenes photos of what the house looked like originally when I bought it. Again, these are not the most aesthetically pleasing houses, but I had a vision for the future of what I wanted. I knew I was young. I knew I was willing to work. So I was willing to buy an ugly house, do what it took to fix it up, and over time it would pay me in cash flow and appreciation, and I would force the equity growth in it. Let's hop in. Okay guys, let's get into the before photos. I want to show you guys just how reckless I really was at this point and what I was willing to take on at the time. I had no care in the world for the work that was needed. I was looking for good deals, low purchase prices with high bedroom counts, and I was willing to take on any of the risk or workload that it would take to rehab these properties. So this is these aren't actually pre-purchase photos. These are photos from when I finally got the place vacant. Maybe somewhere between 6 to 12 months it took me to actually get the tenants out. If you remember the first part of the video, it was 4 guys living college style, dorm style with $500 per bedroom. And as you can see from these photos, they left everything behind. Food, trash, cars, worthless cars that didn't move. The entire garage was filled with hoarder stuff, air tanks. These bedrooms were completely destroyed in every which way. The grass was not cut. It looked like a jungle. I don't know how long it had been since someone had cut it. Basically, they left everything behind. This is what the siding looked like when I bought it. It was part wood, part stucco. So stucco is this middle, then wood are obviously on the sides. They broke doors, they broke windows, and not complaining at all. This is exactly what I was looking for. This is exactly what I wanted. I mean, wanted might be a stretch, but I knew what I was getting into. I was buying a rundown, distressed asset that was extremely dirty and that I was going to have to put money into and rehab. I'll just keep running through these. These are the measurements that I had to get these replaced. I saved these on my phone so that when I went to the store, this is what the subflooring looked like when we pulled up the stick vinyl. All of this got redone with new subflooring, new carpet right here in these little spots. I ended up redoing the siding as well. You'll see that in the next part of this video. It's all white, newly repainted on the interior and exterior. Got rid of all the stuff. Again, this garage had broken window. The door was like welded shut too. These are from my Instagram. These kind of bring back some good memories. I used to go there in the summer and try to clean this place up the best I could, and put in a little sweat equity. Again, this was only my third deal. And it feels good to look at these photos because later in the video I'm going to go over, this was another property that because I put this work in, because I put in sweat equity, I was able to reappraise it a year later and do a cash out refinance. So everything I put into this property, I was able to pull out plus some down the road. That's the key to real estate. That's the key to value add real estate. And you get the gist of what this property was. I bought this property for $123K, single family home, great big bedrooms, great big yard, beautiful big tree. It just was very ugly and had problem tenants. Now let's go into the post rehab photos and I'll show you guys a little bit more behind the scenes on the rehab. Okay, I'm going to tell you guys the story, the fraud story that happened at this house. And I'm also going to touch on something that I now believe in. If you have a good thing going, do not upset the apple cart. I'm going to tell you how this whole fraud thing came into play. This was a 4-bedroom house. Each person was renting out a bedroom individually. Room number 4, the tenant moved out. There was a problem and he had to move out. And for 2 months, everything was perfectly fine. Everything was fine. The other 3 guys were happy. They were content. Everyone was paying. And because I got the property for so cheap, it still cash flowed well, even with 3 tenants. And $1,500 for the place, for how it looked originally, was more than fair enough deal. I was too ambitious and I took the risk of upsetting the apple cart with the other 3, and I wanted to fill that 4th bedroom. Doing so is what opened up this entire can of worms. I market not even the property, I market the bedroom. And what happens is I end up getting a tenant in there, super stand-up guy, well-spoken, everything checks out. Signs the lease, has a good job, works down the street. Everything checks out. As soon as he gets in the property, problems start coming up. The other 3 guys start texting me. There's all types of problem. One guy moves out. Now the whole thing is starting to fall apart. And I'm so new to all this. I still am just learning on the fly. And what happens is I go to the property a few months later to check on things. And there's a guy there that I don't recognize. And we both kind of look at each other like, I'm wondering what he's doing there, and he's wondering what I'm doing there. It turns out he had created fake documents with my last name and pitched the open units to another friend or another person that I don't know who, if he was friends with him or not. He started pitching the other bedrooms and was signing fake leases with them, and he would collect the rent. So when I start to touch base when I start to inspect the unit and I'm wondering where rent is for the last 3 months, they're saying they paid him. And I'm saying, well, I never got it. When they're like, well, I paid him. I don't have the money. This huge thing unfolds, and it all comes to light. The reason I'm telling this story is because this was my breaking point. This is when this house was when I decided what the line got drawn in the sand, if I was going to leave this business and quit or if I was going to keep going. I ended up having to pay for all of them to get out. I did a cash for keys situation. And as you guys have seen, you saw the photos of how they left it. I paid them on top of that to leave. I paid for a U-Haul. That's how desperate I was to get them out. And on your second or third deal, to have something like this happen, it was fairly traumatic. Maybe I should go back to my e-commerce stuff. Maybe I should quit. Maybe I should be done with this. Maybe maybe this isn't for me. And I'm really glad I didn't. I'm going to end the story there, show you guys some of the after photos, and then do a 180 and tell you about the next tenant that I had. And it completely changed my mindset of real estate, housing, and you go from one end of the spectrum of someone taking advantage of you. You see the dark side, and then you go to the other end of the spectrum of someone who's so grateful, of someone who, what a house means to people, what providing housing actually means for a family to feel safe, secure, and build in. And I can't wait to tell that story. So I'm going to end this fraud story, the nightmare that ensued from when I originally bought the property, show you guys the after photos, and show you the 180 that this whole property took. Okay, now let's take a look at the rehab. This was my first ever, I guess, rehab. And it wasn't majorly extensive. Again, because this property already had hardwood flooring, which I've spoke about in other videos. I love hardwood flooring, tile, and luxury vinyl because it's built to last. It just needs to be revitalized. So the hardwood can be, what's the word I'm looking for? It can be revitalized, basically. It can be restored. It can be brought back to life. Basically, this just was a deep clean, and these are before the painting. This was just the clean out. So the clean out was first, getting everything out of there. As you can see, the tile looks good. Everything is good once it's cleaned. The only thing that really needed to be done once the place was clean was I wanted to repaint it and restore it with new paint. As you can see, this paint is just not really acceptable. And you can see the cleaning products. So I don't have all of the best photos. I just looked through them before clicking record, but this was the cleaning part, which was a huge task considering how they left it. This place already looks so much better just by having all the cabinets in place and it being clean. Right here there was mold, all of that stuff got replaced and fixed. Oh yeah, here we go. So now you can see, before we restored the wood, we painted the whole thing white. And it just looks a lot better. We replaced that door also. Of course, there is some paint splotches, so the photos that I have aren't perfect. But this place was completely repainted on the interior, as well as I'm going to show you guys some of the exterior photos. And the exterior is where this place really shines. This was what I loved about this property. It's fenced in and it has this giant yard where kids could play catch with the football, soccer. This photo doesn't do it justice, but this is a giant tree that goes up to heaven. It's just a huge tree that overshadows the entire yard. Really cool exterior and a lot of space in the yard. If you remember, it looked like a jungle before. Even could have a fire pit with a little shed back there. Yeah, this is the tree. This is one of my Instagram posts. I put the little cloud there. You can see how magnificent this tree is. Cleaned out all the stuff. As you can see, we got that door cracked open. Everything was out of there. We did fix this window as well. This photo doesn't show at the time. We exchanged the red truck for a new white truck. And all was well with the world. You can see this photo was still taken when the house was yellow. I tried to recover as many photos as I could. I wish I would have took even more photos now looking back. Remember all the junk that was left behind? All of it was gone. All of it got trashed. And this was photo for the trim. We replaced this trim right here. Now let's look at the house now. The whole exterior was repainted white. and it looks so much better. They put a pool in. Yeah, like we just completely changed the whole aesthetic of this house. And you can just see the yard, the home. I wish I had more photos, but this is what I have for the post rehab. And this was a big reason. This was a big reason of how it appraised so high when I went to ask the bank for a refinance later down the road. This is the story that changed my entire faith in humanity. At this point, I was dealing with a nightmare at a different property, which I'll talk about in a later video. I was completely underwater on this property now. It was problem after problem, and I was about as low as I possibly could have been on the morale of this entire business. It was the first time I had to put big money down for down payments, and it just seemed like there was such a big learning curve to get into this, and I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to withstand this business. Keep in mind, I finally get all these guys out. I'm underwater now on cash flow, and I'm looking at a house with no skills of how to actually fix it. I don't actually know how to do flooring or painting at this point. I don't personally know. I need help. And this is when I met a family who was, I don't even know how at this point, how I came across it. It was on Facebook. I don't know if I was marketing the property, which it wouldn't have made sense because it was in such rough shape. Somehow, some way we come in contact, and they happen to be master builders. They worked on houses, lawn. They were blue collar. I think it's blue collar. They were labor workers. They understood housing, landscaping, all of the above. And it was so hard to find a 4-bedroom that was affordable because they had a family with a yard. And I was in such a gloomy mindset, and meeting them changed my whole perspective on housing too. Because when they saw the house, when they saw the yard, when they saw the mess, they saw an opportunity still. They could see it for what it was going to be, even when I started to wane on the vision. And we basically came up with an agreement that I would pay for all of the materials. I would buy the paint. They were already doing this at their day job. I would buy the paint. I would buy all the materials. I would get the truck. I would buy the new windows. I would buy the new doors. I would be there and help out. I would support in every way possible. And then I would give them I gave them discounts on rent. So the 3 months while it was happening, they lived for free. And then we basically came to an agreement that I wouldn't raise rents on them in the future, and they could grow. They could have their family grow up there until the kids were at least 18. Keep in mind also, I didn't say this before, I had this property up for sale. So on deal number 3, I was ready to quit. I had already listed up the property. I was done. This family came, and I drew the line in the sand. I got out of selling it. I turned it all down. And this experience with them is when I knew I was in. You have that in or out moment. Like in a fight, you get punched, and it's like you either don't want to fight or you do. Meeting them was that point in my real estate career where now I have 20 properties, and it all could have ended right here, but it didn't. And just watching again, you guys just saw the after photos, watching what could happen to the house, seeing it for the first time with my own eyes, seeing a property being destroyed to in great condition, and seeing what it means for someone to have housing. Aside from all the numbers are whatever. It was just a totally cool experience, and it really restored my faith in kind of humanity of just how grateful people can be for if you provide a good enough service, and if you get into something as powerful as housing, the impact you can have on people. I'm kind of rambling on, but to take it even deeper, I did other businesses before. I sold stuff online. I did e-commerce. Never had this experience. It was transactional. If you sell someone a pair of headphones, it's not going to change their life as much as doing something as providing stable housing would be for them. And I'm going to wrap it up and get back to finishing this video, but that's just the story of the family and the experience I had that changed my entire real estate career and my entire outlook on housing in general. Okay, now let's go over some of the final numbers from when I originally got the property. As you can see, the date 2020 to basically now. August 2020. Again, these were the security deposits and rents from when I first buy the property. They transfer over to me from the new owner, or from the old owner. And you can see the cash flow numbers right here. This is the cash flow bar. Now, I owned it longer than I thought, actually, before all of this happened. So it was actually close to a year, 8-9 months. This is when the whole rehab occurred. This is when everything fell apart with the tenants and when all 4 of the tenants moved out. And these are the costs that I incurred during the time of this rehab, to redo the paint, redo the flooring, all of it. Do the clean out, buy the dumpster. These costs, looking back now, are actually extremely low. 1, because I had the help of the new tenants, and 2, I was there a lot doing a lot of the work at cost. So I would buy a dumpster and I would help. There wasn't really labor costs because a lot of this was sweat equity. I want to make a quick point on this too. This is super, super important about real estate. These costs, they're not just lost in the wind. When you put money into a property, it's very different than putting money into a business where it could lose its equity. Example, if I buy inventory for a product that I'm selling and the product becomes unpopular or your offer dies, that inventory becomes almost worthless. In real estate, when you pay for a new roof, water heater, flooring, paint, whatever, that equity transfers from dollars in your bank account, but it's not gone. It's just in the form of equity in that asset, in that property. And I'm going to get into that right now. Let's scroll over. So these 3 months were the rehab. I get the tenant in. Now you see nothing but consistent cash flow numbers. Right here, this was just a payment. So they paid on the 31st. So it got accounted for October, but really, you see, but really it was like November rep payment. It's just consistent cash flow all the way through. And you see these numbers right here. With everything that happened, I had a tenant committing fraud. I had tenants paying another tenant money that I never ended up seeing. I bought a distressed asset with broken windows, effed up paint, flooring, a hoarder garage, a hoarder yard. All that said, this asset was strong enough to where it still was net cash flow positive to this day with all of those expenses incurred. This is where we get down to the rehab part. This is where, again, I discovered fire. The cash out refinance. You can see this cash out refinance amount here. And I'm going to break down how that happened. 1 was natural appreciation. Things went crazy. There was a lot of inflation that happened and home prices just went up. The other part was the actual value add. I increased the value of the property with stable rents, consistent leases, all things that I could show the bank, new flooring, new updates, new exterior, etc. So the bank then goes out and they're going to reappraise the property. Again, I bought it for $120. The appraiser goes out, looks at everything, looks at the leases, looks at the property, compares it, comps to other sold properties in the area, other sold homes in the area, and he says that the home is worth $200,000. This is newly acquired debt. So if you don't know, this is, I guess, this is the Burr strategy. I was able to pull that equity in cash, get that cash into my bank account, And now I'm using that equity from that house and pushing out and buying more deals that are just like it. And that's how this one ended up working out. All right, let's look at the deal analysis. This is what I was looking at when I bought the property. The tenant, when I first bought it, they were each paying $500 a door. And there was one guy moved out immediately when I bought it. So there was 3 tenants in there at $500 a door. The rent was $1,500. They were paying utilities. Let's just go through the numbers quickly here of how this looked. 123, 20% down. Whew! Missed these. 3.25% rate. 30-year fixed. This was a fixed mortgage. Property taxes, this was a little high to me, but this is what they're at, $2,200, $1,200 for insurance. Again, I wasn't paying utilities. The guys were paying utilities. Another key factor to touch on, I was still self-managing. Management was 0. There was a problem over there, I handled it. Vacancy, 0 as well because they were already there. Maintenance, I'll just leave it. Actually, I'm going to put maintenance at 5%, whatever. That's just average. You look over here. This is with a missing bedroom. These are the numbers with a missing bedroom. 35% cash on cash return. 12 cap, 713 in monthly cash flow. And obviously the reason I was able to get these numbers is because I was able to take on such a problem property. If you're willing to take on a property of this magnitude from what you've seen, there's more meat on the bone. There's more money to be made. That's what I was about at this time. Let's just say it worked out where that 4th bedroom did work out and I got the rent to $2,000. This was a very possible situation of what I was looking at. These are the numbers, 58% cash on cash return. Okay, let's look at the final numbers now post refinance. It's so important to run the numbers post refinance as well, because when you do a cash out refinance, you don't just make that money. That money is new debt. So there's new debt that you have to service, and you want to make sure that you're not underwater and that you can actually service the debt and that the asset still makes sense and still cash flows post refinance. Let's break it down. Rent, $2,150. The mortgage payment is around $1,100 after the new debt, after the refinance. Property taxes have gone up. Insurance has gone up a little bit. I pay utilities. The net cash flow is roughly $350 after all of this, after the newly acquired debt. Now, the new debt, let's go back to the original numbers. So stay with me here on this. Again, I bought it for $123. It was 20% down at 3.25 over 30. That cash flow with these current circumstances would be $980. Again, the cash flow is down to $350. Basically, I lost $600 per month in cash flow, but I was able to access $60,000 in debt that I could go in liquidity that I can go out and push into two or three more properties. That is exactly how we're building out this portfolio. We're buying undervalued distressed assets. I'm rehabbing them. I'm adding value to them. I'm stabilizing the tenants. I'm going back to the bank, showing them what I've done, having them reappraise the property, pulling out equity, only pulling out enough equity so that the property still cash flows and is still able to stand on its own 2 feet after the refinance. Take the money from the refinance, rinse, and repeat. That's the game we're playing here. Hey guys, making a quick outro video. This is the website. I finally started working on it. As you can see, there's a bunch of stuff involved. And I'm starting on the product page. These are free resources that you can get right now. The link will be somewhere below. You can download these and start to use the rental calculator that I use and show off in all my videos. If you have any interest at all in real estate, whether it's buy, sell, invest, just want to learn more, use this contact page and you can reach out to me directly and start a conversation. I'll see you guys in the next video.